Hello, I'm the One Nerd, and today I just want to do a video about the new Online Safety Act, which has just been introduced into the UK. So there's a lot to cover here, and I'm still researching, looking into the actual implications of the Act. But in several respects, I'm pretty worried about it actually. Now, the Online Safety Act, if you're not aware, is a new digital act that's been put in place by the British government to require age verification for quote-unquote adult content. So, but one of the major problems actually with the legislation is adult content, we're learning now, is a fairly broad term in the legislation's definition of it, which could have quite a profound effect on platforms, social media platforms, but also gaming platforms, and just generally how content is policed in the UK. And I have huge worries for how it affects not only the civil liberties of individuals in the UK, the potential for data leaks, so because the actual age verification process requires that your age is verified through third-party processes. There's not like one, there's multiple versions of that, which is just a huge data leak of sensitive information waiting to happen. But also how it will be used to police games and fictional content, basically, and media. And I think it's incredibly too draconian. I tend towards being a libertarian when it comes to these types of issues. I don't think the state has any place to, well, within reason, doesn't have any place to police us too much. Now, and one of the things I think that's especially pernicious about this Online Safety Act is the fact that just by me talking about this, people's first reaction is going to be, why are you defending, having to put an age verification on porn websites? Or is it just because you want to jerk off all the time and not have to go with the palaver of doing that? I mean, I'll be honest with you, I watch porn sometimes. I mean, I'm a 39-year-old adult male. I mean, it's hardly surprising. But it's not that really. And I dislike how it's been framed in that way. Because the Act, basically what it claims is that it's there to protect children and teenagers from accessing content that they shouldn't do online. Now, obviously, you can circumvent it very easily by installing a VPN, which you can install on your phone, your computer, and there's multiple services that allow that, and it's not very hard to set up. So it's an ineffective policy that puts huge onus on digital platforms to provide these, age verification services. Not only that, and I've not fully looked into the full technical details of this, but I can remember when I was following media content around this a few years ago, there was talk about putting backdoors into encrypted services as well, so like Signal. For any encrypted service, that there would be backdoors in, so that the government could access the data on your phone, all that sort of stuff. Now, again, this is a bit beyond the technical scope that I'm knowledgeable about. I mean, I know a bit about encryption, but it's not my area. But as I saw in the interview from Channel 4 regarding that aspect of the Online Safety Act, that is a fucking terrible idea. Because if you're creating a backdoor for one, the government, you're creating a backdoor for everybody. So it just makes, on a national security level, it makes the internet less secure in the UK anyway, for UK citizens. So who wins in this far-reaching, frankly, surveillance state technology? So again, like I said, there are so many aspects to this, which can only, it's a slippery slope, really. Other thing to consider as well is now that they've actually brought this legislation into place in this law, there's nothing stopping a different administration coming in and broadening what it considers to be inappropriate content. So if we had a more right-wing government came in, which can happen, it's possible, it's very possible actually. Reform and not that, potentially could win the next election. And I'm not saying Reform will do this, but just for argument's sake, a leader or another party. And what if they want to introduce homophobic policies? So this has already happened actually a bit, and certain subreddits which are not NSFW, they're not like porn threads or anything, they're just general like LGBT communities, are already having to put age verification on their subreddits, right? And they're not porn. It's just a community of people who have a minority sexuality, right? So this just seems really, really, really badly thought out. Obviously, everybody's just getting around with a VPN at the minute. I usually use a VPN anyway, but I'm a bit worried actually about how it's also going to affect my work as a teacher, because I like to sometimes show my students videos, so on YouTube, like if we're studying media, obviously. So a lot of what we do is look at video games, including first-person shooters and games which explore difficult subjects. Now, there's two things which I worry about here. One is I don't want to have to submit my passport and a facial scan of my face to YouTube just to access the site, because I would have to do that in work. What I do at home, I can just use a VPN, obviously. That's what I'm doing at the minute, really. But if I wanted to then when you do a presentation of slides in class, you obviously have to connect to the service. And a lot of gameplay trailers, for example, if you wanted to look at a game, even like Doom, because believe it or not, the Act, and I've still been reading into it because it's such a huge homunculus of a piece of policy, includes adult content as being depiction of violence against a fictional creature. So that could include any fictional depiction of violence in a video game, not even against a human being, but against an imp from Doom or something. This is just effing nonsense, to be honest. It's a fantasy depiction of violence in a fantasy world in a game. This is not about protecting kids. It's just overreaching, nanny state busybodying bullshit. And depending on the actual extent and how far this legislation goes, I am actually seriously considering getting out of this country. The cost of living is already too high. I do have some friends abroad, so I've got a few options for where I could move, so I won't just be moving solo. Now, again, I'm going to see how it all pans out. But I am seriously considering just doing the digital nomad thing. This country's already getting... it's way too expensive. It's absurdly expensive. So even though I earn a fairly good wage, it's not amazing, but it's sort of just above average for the UK on a full-time job. But I don't really reap the benefits from it, because you got rent. I'm lucky with my rent at the minute, but it's just the cost of living as well, and it's not that easy to save. I've managed to save a little bit over the last year, but not a huge amount. So yeah, I'm sort of just considering, I'm a techie person. I can work from anywhere in the world. And there are places I know that I could go to fairly easily. And I don't like the idea of the government having all that the extent of access to people's private information, which I think is an overstep with the government, really. Like I said, I believe in civil liberties. I know it's shocking. And yeah, just to return back to what I was saying before, it's like the way that they've worded and broadcasted out about this legislation makes it seem like, oh, it's just adding, age verification for accessing porn. So even speaking out about it makes you a bit of a pariah, because people, idiots really, but they'd be like, oh my god, why are you so annoyed about a porn law? And look, obviously everyone's joking about it, which is fine. A VPN usage obviously shot up by about 1,000%. But the UK in general has always been like quite... the British people in general are very against this type of stuff. I don't know what Labour are thinking, really. I know it was brought in by the Conservatives, but the Labour could have scrapped it, right? So why didn't they? And then they're justifying it now. And all it does is feeds the narrative, which is not even a narrative anymore. I might have voted for Labour, unfortunately, mostly because we had a half-decent constituency MP. But I regret that now, and I'm definitely going to be voting for a left-wing alternative if that is in place come the next general election. But yeah, it doesn't do any help for Labour's image as heavy state authoritarians, really. In fact, that's exactly what they're becoming. And they have just opened the door for worse administrations, if that's even possible, to extend this type of legislation even further. It's a slippery slope. No matter what your personal feelings are on pornography, if you disagree with it or you don't like it, all this is opening up the door for is actually for further people who are interested in genuinely dodgy stuff and genuinely illegal content. They will have to... Well, I mean, they would have been doing that anyway, but they will have to use something like the Tor to access that type of material, and that. So you're just going to make more technically literate sex offenders, basically. But again, I mean, in a free society, you have to be free in terms of being able to access pornography. I mean, to be able to access porn if you want. It's out there. Making it a black market does not work. Don't delude yourself. In fact, obviously all you're doing if you make it a black market is force it underground, which means that it's less regulated. All it will do is make it worse, really, is my honest opinion on it. Treat adults like adults. Stop trying to use the cover of protecting children to introduce far-reaching legislation that doesn't help anybody. The other thing I'm worried about as well, actually, so I'm a publisher. I publish books and I publish video games. Now, one of my books is called, I'm going to have to even say it on here because it's so censored, Unaliving by Computation, right, with the S word. And that book isn't like a guide to how to unalive yourself or anything. It's a collection of short stories, with a few of which have that as a part of the stories. It's a story. It's a fictional story that explores that difficult theme. It's not like a how-to guide. But again, in this legislation, that unaliving yourself is covered in that. So does that mean that me now as a publisher with a website, with a WooCommerce website, e-commerce listed on Amazon and everything else, will that affect the type of content I'm able to publish? Like freely, without having to then demonstrate to Ofcom that I'm implementing age verification measures to get onto a WordPress site for books that are freely available on Amazon and games that are available on itch.io. I mean, not even to mention the fact that itch.io and Steam have already implemented, basically blacklisting or just flat out deleting already a ton of games. Now, some of these games are just, cheap porno, whatever, games, and they're not, they're not hardly the most sophisticated of titles. But there's different ways of going about this, and this is just too much. And I'm actually worried as a publisher, because another one of my books actually is a very good book. I recommend you check it out. It's called Ragazzo, but that's about a teenage boy who becomes a castrati. It's a serious novel. It's by a serious author, right? It's not like cheap smut or something. It's actually exploring something from history. A castrati, which was a boy who had the balls cut off, basically, for the operatic voice, right? And this is a really good book, Ragazzo, that John wrote. Now, I'm worried as a publisher, does that count as like a adult themed story? Do I then have to like provide age verification services on my website? I'm a small, very, very small micro-entity publisher. I don't have the time to fill in the extensive documentation that you have to provide to Ofcom, as well as even just implementing the age verification. And I shouldn't have to. It's just annoying. We are supposed to live in a free society. And if we live in a free society, then that includes the freedom for people to watch or consume content that you might not even necessarily like it or agree with it. There's plenty of things I don't like or agree with. But I recognise the need for people to be able to access such content if they want. And I fundamentally disagree with the censorious government that have introduced this legislation. And it's already been circumvented, obviously, the VPNs. Again, I'll just end it on this because I just want to collect some more thoughts together and dump them. But the other thing is, and I don't know how far along this is or if it will actually happen, but there's also talk about the government banning the use of VPNs, which now they could make it illegal, but they can't. It would be very difficult to technically stop VPNs from operating because the vast majority of them don't operate within the UK anyway. But again, that would put us on a par with actually like Russia, North Korea, Belarus, China. So again, it's just a sort of UK firewall. And yeah, no state should have control over the. There's already talk about let me make this very clear. So the anti-migrant riots recently. Obviously, I don't agree with any of that. I'm not, right wing in that way. I don't agree with the protests that are being on. It's not my politics, but banning people from being able to see it is no state should have that power. It's an overreach of the state's power to be able to control the information you can see on social media sites. Because without, again, I'm not defending protesters outside of Epping and Essex or whatever. It's not my fight. And I'm just not interested in that narrative, but just blocking the ability to be able to see events that are going on in real time on X, for example, which is already happening, without, providing all this age verification stuff. Just terrible policy, really. Just terrible. And again, I'm seriously considering whether I want to live in this country anymore. It's just the final death knell, really, for me. And I really do care about digital rights and digital, online privacy and all that. I think it's pretty important. Not for activists as well, so they can protect their identity. There's already the Wikipedia legal challenge that's come up because they can't protect their moderators and their content, not accurately anyway. They can't guarantee their protection of their identity, right? This is serious stuff, and it goes well beyond, like I said there. Just putting in some ID to watch Pornhub or whatever. It's really beyond that, and it's almost like a Trojan horse how they've framed it that way, to be honest. Anyway, I think that's enough. I've talked for almost 20 minutes now. That was pretty much coverage of everything I've been able to pick up on yet. But yeah, if they ban VPNs, I'm out of this fucking shithole, man, to be honest. Fucking out of it. Tired of it.